to call to order the Stoner Prairie Park Planning Committee. I see that it's 7:01, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. The first order of business for people who are not on the committee who are viewing from the public. I won't be sharing my screen, which would be the packet. If you're interested in the packet and following along, I just ask you to go to the website and look at the agendas, and the packet is there on our webpage. So just a note for non-committee members. The first order of business is approval of minutes, and since we don't have any minutes, we don't have any to approve. So I think I'll just skip right into item number 3, the welcome. And certainly on behalf of the Park Commission, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time and your interest in this very worthy and interesting park planning process. I tell you, with just the number of committee members and people that wanted to be involved in it, being at 18, I definitely see the interest. A couple other items is this is an official ad hoc committee. It was appointed by the mayor. So what we'll do is we'll follow all the official publications, advertising on the website, taking minutes, all the protocols that go along with an official meeting. So I just wanted to call your attention to that. Secondly, the goal really of, as I mentioned before, the goal of our work is to create a park master plan for the new park adjacent to the Stoner Prairie development. And certainly, I think we need to keep in consideration all the neighboring parks and parklands and all of those kinds of things to make sure that we have a plan that's going to kind of mesh together and work together. But the idea is really to create a plan for the new parkland in the Stoner Prairie development. In regards to process, what I'm going to do is lead the meeting tonight as the director of parks. What we'll do, and if you noticed, one of the agenda items at the end of the night is to elect co-chairs, and that certainly is up for discussion. This is, my thought or staff's recommendation on who those co-chairs should be, but that certainly is an item that we can discuss. And from here on out, what'll happen is the co-chairs will really be the leaders of the meeting. They'll work with city staff, and actually Chad Siegel, who is our recreation director, community center director. He's going to be the staff liaison for this project, and he's the one that's going to assist the chairs of the committee to set agendas and all of those kinds of things. But from here on out, the co-chairs will run the meeting. But certainly I'll be there to support Chad and the whole group. So I just wanted to share that with you. And I really feel that in the interest of time and everyone's volunteering their time, I really want to try and keep these meetings to that 60 to 90 minute time frame. And certainly if we need to go beyond that, that's fine. But if we could really kind of keep that in mind for the respect of all the people in their time. So with that, what I would like to do is go through introductions, and basically what I'd like to do is I'd like to call on. I got the list of the committee members, and I'll call on you. And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and just give a 10 or a 15-second reason why you're involved with the committee, that would be fantastic. So first on the list is Chad Siegel.
Thanks, Scott. As Scott mentioned, I'm the Recreation and Community Center Director, and I've been in that position since late in 2008. And as he mentioned, I'll be the staff liaison for this project. I do want to mention, obviously everybody, got the email from me about the agenda, the meeting, the packet and all that. But I will be sending out information to everybody tomorrow about a notify me contact list where certainly, we encourage you folks to sign up for that. You may end up getting kind of double information if you do. One from the notify me, and obviously you'll continue to get stuff from myself, but it'll just be a way to perhaps share with those not on the committee. You can sign up for email, you can sign up for text. It may be as simple as, hey, the agenda is posted. It might be, here are the minutes from the last meeting. So again, I'll share that information with everybody via email tomorrow, and certainly, if you can distribute that, your neighbors and others who you think might be interested in the project, just so we can get as much information out there as we can.
Thank you, Chad. Randy Udell.
That's Randy Udell.
Udell. Okay. Sorry, Randy. Thank you.
It's all right, Scott. Good evening, everyone. As I said, my name is Randy Udell, and I am the alderperson for District 4, Seat 8, which Stoner Prairie sits in. And I'm also a neighbor. I live in Seminole Forest, and I will be the liaison between this ad hoc committee and City Council and with the mayor. So.
Thank you, Randy. Mark Anderson.
Yeah, thanks. Mark Anderson, I am a family medicine physician with UW and a longtime resident of the area. Grew up in Seminole Forest, lived in Lacey Heights, now live in the Stoner Prairie neighborhood. And I have 2 kids at the Stoner Prairie Elementary, 1 at the middle school. I attended elementary school at Stoner Prairie.
Wow.
And also active in MUFA. So part of that group as well. I know we've got a number of people here. And so I'm coming at this from quite a few angles.
Thank you, Mark. Sue Easterday.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Sue Easterday. I am a resident of Wildwood neighborhood, the association lead for Wildwood, which is within the half-mile radius of the area park that this park serves. And I'm also a member of the Parks Commission and have made lots of trips to the schools and what is of the park so far with grandchildren over the last couple of years.
Very good. Thank you, Sue. David Garter.
Yes, I'm a recent resident of the city of Fitchburg, maybe about 5 years. Live right next to McKee Farms Park. For the last 2 years, I've been on the City of Fitchburg Park Commission. I have a background in the past of planning activities related to work being done at the University of Wisconsin and over in Milwaukee with the City of Milwaukee development. I'm not really familiar with that neighborhood, but again, being interested in the parks is the reason for my participation.
Thank you, David. Lucas and Kelly.
Hello, my name is Lucas Habert.
I'm Kelly.
So we're in the Stoner Prairie neighborhood, and we are involved because we live next to the park and we're interested to have opinions on what happens.
Thank you, Kelly and Lucas. Joshua.
Hi, everyone. I'm Josh Nackert. I'm a relatively recent Seminole Forest resident in the past 2 years, and I'm also a member of the Dane County Environmental Council. I serve as my role professionally is with Exact Sciences as a grants and med education specialist, and I'm also very active in MUFA and have a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. So, like others here, have quite a few hats that I'm bringing to the ring in level of interest for this park.
Thank you, Josh. Ben.
Hey, I'm Ben Lindbergh. I live in Lacey Heights, really pretty close to this space. I got 3 kids in the 2 in elementary school and 1 in preschool still. So, and I'm also on the Lacey Heights Neighborhood Association board. So, I'm right here.
Thanks, Ben. Katie.
I'm Katie McDonald. I am also a member of the Fitchburg Parks Commission, and I live in the Wildwood neighborhood, right down near Wildwood Park. I have a elementary schooler and a middle schooler, although my 2 go to the City of Madison schools, not to the Verona schools. And I am a civil engineer and focused in the Park and Rec department. So again, multiple angles.
Thank you, Katie. Julie.
Good evening. I'm Julie Musgrove. I'm the principal at Stoner Prairie Elementary, and just want to be the representative when it comes to the Verona Area School District in Stoner Prairie.
Thank you, Julie. Daniel.
Scott, I can talk regarding Daniel. He sent me a message a short time ago that he doesn't have the time to commit to the project, so he asked to be removed from the group. So Daniel Owen will not be joining the group.
Thanks, Chad. Jane.
Hi, my name is Jane Pruse. I've lived in Seminole Forest for about 7 years. Both my kids have gone through Verona Area International School, which is the Chinese immersion, when it was located at Stoner Prairie. This year it was relocated to Verona, but they're in 4th and 6th grade. So we have spent a lot of time hoofing it up to Stoner Prairie on the bike path and through all that park area. So we have an interest in just seeing how it's developed. And I think it maybe can bring some historical perspective to how those, maybe it's some of the foot traffic from parents in the neighborhood happens.
Very good, Jane. Thank you, Janelle. Okay, let's get it. Ooh.
Let's try again.
Janelle?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm good to go now?
You are.
Sorry about that. Technology and headsets. Janelle Rice, I live in Lacey Heights, previously past president of Lacey Heights Neighborhood Association, previously the alder for this district, District 4. When I was the alder, this came across our desk, and I thought it was just a significant opportunity, not only in just the clear way that we can see it, but as you start connecting the dots and thinking about the opportunity to connect the Badger State Trail and all of the other things that can be part of this system. My day job, I work with civil engineers. I work with construction architects. So City of Madison's a client of mine. Denver Airport's a project of mine. And so I kind of bring some of those project expertises as well.
Thank you, Janelle. Pete.
Hi, thank you, Scott. I'm Pete Schramm. I'm the president of the Madison Ultimate Frisbee Association, and my interest in the project is much like a few of the other people who have spoken. I've been playing at Stoner Prairie for probably over 15 years now. So certainly as a utilizer of the park, we have an interest in it.
Very good, Pete. Christopher.
Hey, I'm Chris Sina. I live in the Uptown Village neighborhood, and I'm also a member of the Fitchburg Parks Commission. I'm a registered landscape architect, and so I have experience designing various types of planning and designing various types of public spaces. So hopefully that experience can be useful here.
Thank you, Chris. Sachin.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm Sachin Tuli. I'm a faculty associate at the Wisconsin School of Business. And just like everyone else, I have kind of a multidimensional interest in this project. I worked for 5 years in my youth at the Waukesha Parks and Rec. So I became very familiar with park and recreation programs, and spent 5 summers at different parks in the area. I've been a Fitchburg resident for 20 years, and now my wife and I have 2 children that go to the Stoner Prairie Elementary. And I've been involved in various places I've lived in Fitchburg, whether it was our condominium, whether our first house, or now this home, which in our neighborhood, we don't have an HOA yet. So as a new entrance to the neighborhood, I thought this would be a great way to get involved, given my history with my kids at the school, various reasons why I want to be involved. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Sasha. And Jeff.
Hello, my name is Jeff Welchevsky. I'm living in Seminole Forest. We lived here the last 3 years. Previously lived in Oak Meadow for 5 years. I'm on the board of our neighborhood association here in Seminole Forest. Traffic and safety is my main position. I have a 5 and a 7-year-old, and we live right down the road from the planned site for the park. So I'm really interested in how it goes.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. Garrett.
Hey, good evening. This is Garrett Zelensky. I live in the Stoner Prairie neighborhood. I was one of the first kind of houses or first families to move in here. Before this, we moved back up to McKee Farms, used that park a lot. Lived there for about 7 years. I have a 5th grader and 6th grader who both go to Verona District. So, just looking at things from, similar to Jeff, traffic flow, safety for the kids in the neighborhood, because it is a pretty young, neighborhood with lots of kids running around. So that's kind of my biggest perspective here as well. Also, just being in the neighborhood and close to the park.
Very good. Thanks, Garrett. I don't think I missed anyone. And certainly it just in the brief introductions, it looks like we've got a great a diverse group with a lot of skills and experience, and certainly it sounds like a lot of participants in the new park. So thank you for that. The next agenda item is public
Scott, did Susan get to speak or did I miss it?
Susan Easterday, yes, she did. Yep.
No, I'm sorry. The other Susan that we have on the call.
Well, she's not. She can certainly. Is she a? Sure. Go ahead, Sue.
Hi, I'm Susan DeChico. I'm also on the MUFA board. I'm not in the committee. I was just here as a member of the public and to listen in.
Thank you.
Well, there we go. Public appearances for non-agenda items. So Susan, you could be under public appearances, okay? So we'll do that. Then the next agenda item is agenda review. And hopefully everyone has had a chance to take a look at the agenda. And really the agenda is, we're in the information gathering stage. So we're trying to gather as much base map and information as we can. But certainly if there's some additional information that people are interested in along the way, we can take notes of that and get that information. But with that, is there someone that would be willing to move to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Who was that?
I'm sorry, Janelle, so moved.
Janelle, thank you, Janelle.
Second.
For Randy, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So now our agenda items, and again, what we're going to do is really work to gather base map information and other information related to the park. And as we go through this, if there's any other any other items that people are interested in receiving, please let us know. The first page there, which is page 2, is the Stoner Prairie Park, the base map, and you can see if you look at the legend there, the dark orange is the park boundary. Now that includes existing park along with the new park. And actually the new park is to the north. If you can see that east-west path just to the north of the ball diamond, that area is the new park, if you would. Also included in there are the bike paths. We've identified the Stoner Prairie Elementary School, and another point of interest is the well site. If you see that on the left portion of the map, and that actually is a well site for the, as I understand, for the neighborhood. And I guess what I would mention is that we did work with utility in another park where we combined the well site and actually created a shelter, some bathrooms, that kind of thing as a dual purpose facility or building. So that's the park scale. Then the next map.
Scott, I'm assuming that's Siegel Jamestown that you're talking about.
That is correct. Yep, Siegel Jamestown.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Then the next map is we tried to create we have different radiuses which indicate the different park classifications. We do see the quarter mile radius, which is the neighborhood park radius. And then we also included the half-mile radius, which is the area park. And then actually the next map will be the community park radius. But if I could call your attention on this map, down on the bottom, there's that gray shaded area, which is a moraine edge open space proposal. It's one of the big plans that we have within our park plan. So, and actually, as we go through the agenda, we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we kind of tried to list the different activities because again, what we want to do is we don't want to duplicate activities. If we it's just with the limited resources and those kinds of things, to try to not duplicate activities would be advisable. The next.
Hey Scott,
yep.
I thought, is the park going to be an area park? Is that the classification?
Well, in actually, it's going to be, I would say it'd be classified as two. It's going to function as two different types of park, which happens. Community parks, in theory, do function as a neighborhood park for the quarter mile radius group. They also provide services for the area park. So I would classify this probably as a combination. Certainly, we want to do the neighborhood park for the direct neighbors of Stoner Prairie and their new park. So I would, anticipate that might be the design of a neighborhood type of park, but certainly with the activities that we have and the potential bathrooms and shelters, those are amenities that are included in an area park. So this could also function as an area park. And actually, as we begin to start to talk about the crossings development, they're looking to propose a dog park, which really becomes kind of a community type of function. So to answer your question, I would think it'd be, probably classified as an area park, but certainly it's going to have a neighborhood park function and an area park function.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then the next one.
If I could, sorry, Scott, if I could just interject there just to ask a clarifying question, because I think, some of the concerns people have already mentioned in terms of their interest have been a little bit about traffic and safety. If I'm reading this legend correctly, are the other area parks then that I see in some of these base maps, they don't have additional parking. Would that be correct in terms of?
Well, I think it would vary, Sasha.
Okay.
Typically the feature that an area park would have that a neighborhood park wouldn't have would be a shelter that is reservable, and bathroom facilities. Those are really kind of the signature amenities that help determine that they are area parks. If that helps.
Scott.
Yes.
I have my hand up as well. Just, I guess for further clarification, you reference it as a neighborhood and area park. I mean, what is the protocol to establish an area neighborhood community park? Is that something that is directed and you make that decision, or does it go before Parks and Commission, Council? I just think we need some real clarification. Or is that something that's established 6 months down the road once we report out?
You know, that's a good point, Randy. And I guess what I refer to is, and we'll get to it, there's a table within our park and open space plan, which really give criteria for neighborhood parks. They talk about what the park is supposed to serve, basically a 1/4 mile radius. And it does have some recommendations as far as amenities or the size of the park. So that's really how, at this point, I classify parks as basically by their amenity and their uses. Certainly, I know where we ran into a situation with, the question of the hub, the North Fish Hatchery Hub in the northern part of our city. And I know one of the things that we're looking to do is update our park and open space plan, which I think those criteria could be flushed out, to be honest with you, Randy. But at this point, it's really size, it's really service radius, and it's amenities that are included, which, like I say, are from the chart that we have within our park and open space plan.
Okay, I just think that just after the experience last week regarding the hub, I think at some point we are going to need to narrow in on the actual classification of the park.
Mm-hmm. And agreed. And with the current, as I mentioned, the current classifications and then the definitions of those areas, including the amenities, are really the basis that I'm using that would, classify these different spaces and what kind of park they would be. Okay, then page 4, we kind of go out to more of a regional type map. And I will, draw your attention to the Quarry Ridge recreational area that we have to the west. And then there's a lot of development that's going to the west. And we certainly want to make sure that we have trails and connections and all of those types of things that will be connecting to the west. So, and again, one of the action items, or one of the things that I'll ask the group to do before we meet in May, is to, take a closer look at these maps and see if there's anything that we have missed to be included in the future, and we can certainly add those pieces. Then the next page is I put in the packet our park and open space plan. This is our 5-year planning document that we use for the Parks Department, and I took some specific pages from the plan, and you can notice that it is 2015 to 2020. So we are scheduled to get this updated in 2021. The first thing that I wanted to call your attention to was on page 8 of the packet. That is the information. What we did is we did a survey when we updated this park and open space plan. And this was the information that we received from the public, which I think is important information. And actually, further down in the packet of information, there's going to be examples of survey questions that we asked. And I suspect that what we're going to do, before our next meeting is to create that survey, to try to put together some questions that we can circulate to, gather some feedback and information from the neighbors. Then page 9, I referred to this. This is kind of the definition of area park, neighborhood park, and then you can kind of see the table, which indicates desired size, the service radius, and then the different amenities which are included in those different park classifications. So that might help us maybe figure out survey questions and those kinds of things. The next map. Yep, go ahead.
Another question. Because I know some parks are, next to schools, and I'm glad we have the principal on. How do we factor in the school amenities, kind of considering, people can use it when school is in session, there's summer activities, or kids that are in private school, or kids that are virtual or homeschooled. So how do we take into account those things?
Well, and certainly you bring up a good point that we want to consider those amenities that are on school grounds. Certainly they're, private to some degree when the school is, when school is in session. So we need to keep that in perspective. But certainly to have, school board or school representatives on the committee, the idea of, that relationship, that partnership with the school. There may be some curriculum driven things that the school might be interested in that, in theory, they might come on to park property. And, we have a reciprocity agreement with the school district where basically they're allowed to use our facilities at no charge. And then we are allowed to use their facilities at no charge. So we do have somewhat of a relationship, but certainly, I think that's important to, potentially a big asset for us. But certainly we have to keep in mind that, the school property is school property during certain time. And like I say, it's great to have school representatives on here so they can kind of help us and guide us with any questions that might come up. At the end of the day, if the school district has a basketball court, it might not make sense to have a school, a basketball court on the park property. That might, just as a general thought. I did include some park service area parts from our park and open space plan, kind of an inventory of all the different parks on page 11. And then this is on page 12, you can kind of see where the Moraine Edge Park is indicated. And actually all the green to the south is our park and open space proposal. About 7 or 8 years ago, our city forester and our park and forestry assistant, they went out and basically inventoried all of these properties to the south, and we created kind of a park and open space proposal, which trying to connect all the natural resources along with, if there's development that's coming into that area, that this would be the information that the Park Commission would consider when a development comes in to try and maintain these resources. And then as I mentioned, here's a kind of a sample of a survey that we did use when we updated the Park and Open Space Plan. And then when we get to page 16, the big thing with when we begin to start to plan the park, I guess one of the goals that we had within the plan, that the space, these spaces should provide sociable interaction, solitude, and seams, which are trails and all of those kinds of things. I guess this is just kind of the parameters that we should keep in mind as we go through this park planning process. And then we have specific goals, which again, I think these are really, important things that really kind of drive, could potentially drive what this park plan could look like. So we want to keep those in mind. And then we had a whole bunch of action items, which kind of give us an idea of, page 20, develop partnerships. One of the action items is, well, as you mentioned, Randy, explore revisions of the city system, classification and standards, parkland dedication, which goes towards your question. Discuss potential north, we're working on that Fish Hatchery Road project on page 20. City paths, they talk about community gardens. We're really, and actually what we're doing this year is there's three new parks that are going to have community gardens within the city to add to Swan Creek. So that's going well. Design, page 22, item number 9, design and landscape existing and future parks. The idea of trying to create some standards on what these landscapes should look like. Certainly we want to be diverse, but we want to, be friendly to the environment and those kinds of things. Number 10, strengthen partnerships with governmental entities, the school, trees, maintain the city's tree canopy, stormwater facilities. I don't believe we have any stormwater facilities there. New rec programs. Again, this might be a potential partnership with the Verona School District if they're looking to do some outdoor educational potential programs in the area. Number 15 on page 24 talks about the Marine Edge Park. And then actually I get into page 25, which really describes the park concept of the Marine Edge Park. Some different elements. And then really the, kind of the concept of the Marine Edge Park. And I think with that, that's kind of item B, the review of the park and open space plan. And again, I guess why I included it in the packet is that we need to try to keep in mind all of these goals and things as we continue to try and put together this plan. Any further thoughts or comments on the park and open space plan? Well, and actually,
Scott,
go ahead.
Just real quickly, that the reason that the Moraine Edge Park concept is important is it comes right up to the edge of the school properties on the left-hand side of the top left side, and that may have been pointed out, but if so, I wasn't listening. And but really to say that just to envision a future where as land continues to be developed, that parkland is dedicated or pathways are created. And it's to envision being able to be on a bicycle or jogging or walking and go from one end of the city to the other, and hopefully in an area that's well developed and it connects you from park to park to park, including the one we're talking about planning right now. So we as this park would fit into a system of other parks.
Absolutely.
And to that point, I think, one of the pieces here was talking about Fitchburg's brand. And from a brand perspective, it's about the values you have. And I think you have this signature opportunity with this Moraine Park and this kind of comprehensive approach to the park planning process where, that really sets apart this community, I think, from some of the other places in the region. And so I think that to kind of echo Susan's point, it's very important to keep that in mind. It would be a boon, I think, to the area to have such a progressive, and it's great that we have that in mind.
Mm-hmm. And same thing to the west, with the Quarry Ridge recreational area and all of those kinds of things. We're kind of planning the Stoner Park, the Stoner Park itself, but we need to make sure that it connects and interconnects with all the other entities and things that we have within the community. And that was actually, I rolled items B and C together. The next item on the agenda is the Stoner Prairie Neighborhood Survey. And this was a survey that Sashin led with the Stoner Prairie Park neighbors, and it really did provide some information. I think this is, certainly information that we can continue to include, but that's not to say that we're not going to do, additional survey work and those kinds of things to get information from our residents in the area. So then, oh, come on, it froze up here. Oh, I lost my internet connection. So so we've got the Stoner Prairie neighborhood concept and ideas, and I think towards the end of that information, it does provide some potential. Let me see. Well, we've got some park amenity equipment ideas. The rocks, which is really cool. On page 34, the idea of the toddler park and the area that they've identified on page 35, that's the existing Stoner Prairie Park, if you would. There's a playground, but then what they began to start to plan was that toddler track and the climbing wall and all of those kinds of things. So those are really kind of interesting and neat concepts that they gathered from the preliminary information from the neighborhood. And then if you look at page 36, you can see how it kind of connects. And what's kind of interesting here is that, I'm envisioning, the northern end, which would be potentially, kind of the neighborhood park, if you would. The southern end of that path could, in theory, be the area park facility with the active events. I know we've got the Ultimate Frisbee group is there, but potential basketball and tennis courts, and then also too, it would kind of create a buffer from the north or from the Stoner Prairie neighborhood to the activities at the southern end. So I think this is kind of a cool idea of kind of separating that path in the middle, would kind of separate the passive items to the north, and then maybe the active items to the south. And then you can kind of see where the shelter could potentially go. They identified on page 37 what some of these shelters or gathering features might look like. Some real cool concepts as far as pavilions. And then they identified that beer garden thing, which I know we tried to do that at McKee Farms Park, and it wasn't very successful, but the idea of, social gathering and those kinds of things were identified in the Stoner Prairie survey information that they provided. So any further thoughts or ideas on that? Just to
I would say, we, as I mentioned before, Stoner Prairie doesn't have an HOA, and so of course this wasn't done in a way that was official in that sense. We did have quite a variety of people give input on what we've developed here in terms of a starting point, but that's what this is meant to be, is nothing else but having at least a place that wasn't a blank to start from when refining these ideas further, right?
Yeah.
And I think it raised some good concerns that are at first everyone's excited, and then you start thinking about, well, what about the safety? What about the traffic? What about the parking?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think we've generated some ideas, and that's what it was meant to be, as at least to have a point of departure from.
And I think that's very valuable, Sasha. And again, exactly, it's just kind of a starting point, and we're going to try and get some additional information and additional surveys and those kinds of things from not only Stoner Prairie neighborhood, but all the other surrounding neighborhoods and those kinds of things. So thank you for that. The next couple slides, and I lost my connection here, is the Crescent Crossing concept plan. And this is a development to the west. Does everyone kind of have the idea of where this is at? If you go back to, might be best to go back to page.
Hey folks, it's right in the corner of Lacey and Seminole.
Yep, if we go,
it's currently developed.
If everyone goes back to page 3, you can kind of directly to the west, as Janelle was saying, you can kind of see the circle with all the different developments in there. That green is the neighborhood park. And then actually we didn't identify, there's like a little bit of a J to the east that runs, it's kind of a sliver. That is proposed as the dog park in their development. So if we go back to the page that we were on there, just to kind of orientate yourself, you go back to page 39, and actually it's kind of it is a bit confusing because it's not orientated correctly, but you kind of got the idea there. That's a Crescent Crossing development to the west. And then they go on page 40 to kind of design that neighborhood tot lot with some playground features. And then they actually talk about or show on page 43, they show the dog park area. So that again is, and really the goal for tonight, if you would, is to, and the goal probably for our next meeting is to continue to gather, base map information, information on what people are doing within the developments or in the areas. The item number, is there any questions on that one? Just kind of some information. And then the item F, which is our budget review. And what I'm doing is I'm currently working with the finance department to finalize those dollars that are available for the development. We are working with the Crescent Crossing development. We're working on a potential relationship where currently now these parklands are private, but they're looking to dedicate them to the public and then put the improvements in, but they would be deficient in parkland. So we're in theory going to be receiving some park improvement fees and fee in lieu of parkland dedication. So I'm working to finalize those budget items to make sure that we're in full agreement with finance on dollars that are available to develop the park. So with that, I did have a timeline format and review, item number G, and really, yes, go ahead.
Do we have any estimate on when we might have a sense of what those dollars are? Since I think that's a key part of what we're doing.
Well, I would say that they're between 500,000 and 700,000 or 800,000. So it is a significant amount, and the big, as I see it, potentially, if it's decided to partner with the utilities to make the, the shelter and bathrooms. I would anticipate that that would be probably our largest ticket item. For example, the Hugo Jamestown Park, that shelter was about 600,000. And what we would do is we would proportion out, the park portion of that. So probably would be half. So that would be our largest. But again, I'm real hesitant to say those numbers, but I'm pretty confident that they would be in that range, which would be, certainly significant dollars and enough dollars to do, to do a lot of things in this park.
Hey, Scott. And also with that, do we have an idea of like maintenance, the budget for yearly maintenance and things like that? Because I'm assuming we'll want to take all that into account, right?
Well, and the way it works is those maintenance dollars are absorbed into the general park operating budget. So those are factored in with taxes. Certainly, I'm envisioning that this is really going to be a location where the neighborhood is really going to take ownership of those kinds of things. And certainly, we're always looking for Arbor Day activities and park cleanup activities and all of these kinds of things. So I think there's definitely a partnership of city resources and volunteer hours and those kinds of things. And I'm envisioning too that there might be some natural areas which would need cleanup and those kinds of things. So I really, the park space is really kind of the idea of a location for gathering. And as I mentioned, Anna and the forestry department, we do a lot of Arbor Day activities and plant trees and all of those kinds of things. But to answer your question, it really is absorbed in the park operating budget, which comes from the taxes. The one interesting thing that we're working on with Crescent Crossing, which is still kind of in the works, that Crescent Crossing, what they would do is they would dedicate the land as city park, so it'd be available to the public. They would use their park improvement fees or ask for a credit to develop the park, and then actually they, through the homeowners association, would provide the maintenance of the park, which is a new concept, which is really hasn't been approved or anything like that. And that actually is one of the action items that we have within our park and open space plan. So in theory, that I guess we could, due to our limited capacity and things like that, we definitely would work in partnership with the neighbors and in the area if they're interested in doing some kind of maintenance activities or improvements to the park.
Yeah, I would, knowing most of the people in our neighborhood, I think we'd be all for that, doing whatever we can to help out and kind of make it unique. So yeah, that's a great idea.
Yep. And like I say, that kind of a new concept, but it really is something that we're thinking about doing, which is very cool. And again, when we develop the plan, it's going to be, the plan will be the end product, if you would, and there might be phases and short term and long term and all of those kinds of things. So there's certainly as different implementation strategies when we put together the final plan. I suspect we're not going to be able to develop the whole plan right away. It's going to take some time, and that'll be another thing that we'll discuss and figure out how we want to implement it. Okay, then item G, which is timeline, format, and review. Again, I'm envisioning this as we're kind of in the information gathering process at this point, and then once we get all the information that we're seeking, what we'll do is we'll begin to start to, do the planning component of it, the design component of it, where we'll put together, different ideas, different designs, different thoughts, and then at some point, I suspect we would go to the public with a couple different options and get feedback from the public, and make adjustments, and then we would go through the, at the end, we would go through the plan approval and implementation, which would be the last piece of the timeline. And again, I'm pretty confident that we can get through this in, hopefully in 6 months or so, and have a plan and begin to start to implement in 2022, which is kind of my idea or thought of our timeline. So with that, I think what I wanted to do is I wanted to go to item H, election of committee co-chairs. And certainly my thought was that because the Stoner Prairie neighborhood and the Lacey Heights neighborhood, they are direct neighbors to this development. I did include in the packet, the last page was the neighborhood association page. So it kind of indicates who the neighborhood associations are and how close they are to the Stoner Prairie Park. So that was my thought, that the Stoner Prairie neighborhood would have a rep, and then the Lacey Heights neighborhood would have a rep as the co-chairs, and then they would kind of set the agendas and run the meetings. So I guess I'd be interested in any discussion that we might have regarding that.
I think I'd like to see it just open to the group, whatever the group thinks makes sense, and follow that guide.
Sure. I guess this is the opening thought. So if someone else has other thoughts.
I think David, you're muted.
Yeah. Scott?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I would propose that we have a chair, and others can help in various ways, but I think having one person directing it would be helpful. I also remember that Janelle Rice came before the Plan Commission. She volunteered to have a role, and I think she has aspects of her background that are excellent. Previously, having been an alder, living in the neighborhood, having project management experience, I think if Janelle was interested in serving, I would like to nominate her as the chair for the committee task force.
Thank you.
Would you accept that nomination, Janelle?
Cheerfully.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
So that was Dave, and then
Randy Udell.
Randy, thank you, Randy. Any other discussion or thoughts or ideas? How do folks feel about that?
I kind of like the idea of having the co-chairs, like the original idea.
I'm in agreement. I do think there's some benefit to those who are directly impacted by the park to have to be taking the lead. It's great Janelle's interested. I think it would be beneficial also to have someone who's in that vicinity.
Yeah, I agree.
Perhaps maybe not to throw too many people into the mix, but maybe since there's 3 seemingly adjacent neighborhoods, and maybe that could help share the instead of 2 co-chairs, maybe have 3.
Could I also, Sue Easterday here, when just more of a fleshing out of the discussion back to November, when the discussion started at the Parks and Recreation Commission and Janelle came forward, it was my understanding, as I think probably of the others, is that she was going to have a leadership role because of her past knowledge, and she's the past president of the Lacey Heights Neighborhood Association. So she is one of those 2 neighborhoods that are closest.
Right.
So in that regard, I would favor her keeping that role.
And I think another point of view, as I looked at this, my hope was to have somebody actually from the Parks Commission, I think as we take a look outside of the neighborhood, we take a look at the framework of governance, we take a look at our citywide processes as a whole, those other spaces beyond this, having some understanding of that in a comprehensive way, I thought would be incredibly beneficial in providing leadership to this group.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think we also need, if we're talking about this neighborhood, helping the park keep up maintenance, kind of the partnership. I still think we need people that are right here, that see the park out their windows every day. That help leading this.
I just think we just need checks and balances with it, and I would say multiple. I'm not against having Janelle on the leadership role, though.
How have other ad hoc committees in the past been? How did they structure?
Yeah, boy, I couldn't tell you, Sasha. I would suspect that they probably would have a chair, and then that would be it. But again, I think, from the parks perspective and my perspective, the idea of multiple chairs or co-chairs, it really does create that balance and check and balance as has been talked about. And certainly, I guess my thought in selecting, a person from the Stoner Prairie and the Lacey Heights is that they're just the direct neighbors to the new park. So it made sense to me that we would have a representative from each of those neighborhoods to be the co-chairs of the committee. But certainly, I don't want to slight other people and all those kinds of things. And again, the co-chairs are really going to be the managers of the process. The group is going to decide, the consensus of the group is going to decide what's happening and all of those kinds of things. This is really just kind of I don't want to slight the co-chairs, but their function is really going to be to some degree to manage process. Yeah. Right. And really to some degree they're, I don't want to say that their ideas are muted, but it really, that's how it generally will function. But I think it's just, someone that we can, Chad and Chad Siegel, they can get together and they can figure out the agenda. And it's always nice to kind of have a group just so you can throw off ideas and all those kinds of things and come up to a consensus.
From my perspective, I'd like Sachin to do it just since he's, been kind of the leader of this whole process from, last fall, since even before last November. Seems like he, has the experience and has been involved in these types of things and is really kind of, coordinating everything and done a good job. So sorry, Sasha, to put you on the spot without even asking you or mentioning it to you, but I think you'd be great for perspective of the neighborhoods, in the area.
Yeah, I would second that. I think the majority of the neighborhood would view Sachin as the representative since he started this process.
Well, can we?
I would say, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sasha.
I would say I would throw out. I would be willing to in that capacity serve in that capacity if people wished. I don't know Christopher Sina. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, and sorry to put you on the spot. But I'm just thinking as we've reflected on your role on the Parks Commission, your background in landscape architecture, the disparate pieces we have of this process, different neighborhoods, different alignment with other parks, a school property, a toddler property, an active parent property, a neighborhood property, a community property. I think you would be a great third co-chair. Sometimes it's good to have odd numbers. It helps things. And I would like to nominate you, having never talked to you before, but please consider that.
So Chris, What say you?
That wasn't really on my radar, so I'm not sure what to, what to say. I suppose, I guess.
Good man. Good man. You had a great interview in 30 seconds. Look at that. You got an administrative position already, Chris.
Oh.
Sorry, Chris. I'll make it up to you sometime.
Well, and if you're looking for my opinion, I think that'd be a great mix. I think that'd be a great mix. My 2 cents. How about you, Mr. Siegel? What, as the staff liaison, what's your thoughts?
Were we going with what was it 3? Was it Chris, Janelle, and Sachin?
Well, I'd like to throw another name in when we're ready for that.
I think we're ready for it.
I'd like to throw Sue Easterday's name in. She sits as a key part of the Parks Committee. She's been a longstanding neighbor. She's got very much of an eye towards the natural elements as well of what we're doing. And I've seen her function on the Parks Commission. She does a great job of pulling people together and getting them to work together as a team. And I think we've got a large number of folks here. So for all of those reasons, I think that she would do an outstanding job.
And I guess I would just throw a word of caution. We started out with 6 committee members, ad hoc committee members, and we're up to 18. So it's not going to be that, other members aren't going to have their input and be able to share thoughts and ideas. That, that's really not the intent. So I would just throw that out there.
I think that Sue Easterday, also being on the Parks Commission, I think she frankly would be a better job sort of filling that role than me as a co-chair. So I would like to lend my support to her, actually. And I think that I will be better at helping when it comes to putting lines on paper, sort of, and gathering information, and I think that's where I'm going to be able to hopefully lend the most to this project. So as far as being a co-chair, I think I would relinquish that nomination myself and lend my support to Susan.
Very good, Chris. Very good. Very good. Any other?
Well, I'll just explain one more thing about myself, which I don't always think to mention, that I've been a volunteer in the parks for a couple of years now. I helped with our Wildwood Park, just a stone's throw from North Stoner Prairie Park. Our Wildwood Park, about 1/8 of it was loaded with buckthorn and honeysuckle, and we got a group together to get rid of it all, and volunteers installed a very nice path. And your new park at North Stoner Prairie is twice the size, and we've got a nice mix of people here who can all bring enthusiasm and their various skills. So I look forward to getting my hands dirty, literally, help plant some native plants in a corner if we can scratch one out for ourselves, and look at the whole area, the school and the park property, try to figure out what they bring to the community together, and then create those connections between the community, our park, the rest of the community, pathways. I've worked with the Scouts recently to get some projects installed in the park. So I'll help as best I can. And I'm not intending it anyway to ignore what anyone else has to say about what they'd like to do with their parks that's in their neighborhood.
And that's appreciated, Sue. And actually too, one of the roles I guess I envision with the chairs of this committee is to, make monthly reports to the Park Commission. So with Sue being on the Park Commission, that'd be a natural that she could just provide an update on the, the committee's work and all those kinds of things. So I think we're at Janelle, Sasha, and Sue. Is there any other further thoughts or ideas or discussion? Okay, with that, I'd call the question. We're looking to have Janelle Sashin and Sue Easterday act as our chairs of this committee. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Congratulations, congratulations. Now for the next steps, I guess what I would do is I would call on the group to, review the information that we kind of went over tonight. If you haven't had a chance, I'd invite you to go out and, and take a look at the site, walk around. I'm thinking with this information, you're going to have to, you'll have a little bit better understanding of the area that we're talking about. And also too, I'm thinking between now and May, what I would really envision as our goal of, in May that we would discuss the survey questions that the subcommittee would bring to us in that May meeting. So before now in May, if any of the committee members would have suggestions as far as questions and those kinds of things, and then I would see the chairs of the committee and Chad kind of working together to come up with that survey list, and then in theory we could approve that survey in May along with the distribution. Hopefully get that out and get some feedback, and then begin to start to evaluate the feedback that we received in June and begin to start to lay out some potential ideas.
I'll also
Can I
that when we originally put this idea before the Parks Commission, that I had at least put together a preliminary plan that laid out, this is kind of our big picture strategy. These are the 4 phases. So we've got some sense of how do we look at maps? How do we look at budgets? How do we look at functional areas? I think it's just a super high level path to kind of give everybody a sense of each of the pieces and then where it lays into the phase. I'll be glad to connect with my other 2 chairs on that and get their feedback and see if we also kind of want to, provide that to the team.
And I guess what I would do is I'd ask Chad, kind of call a meeting or a Zoom meeting in shortly here in the next week or so, and then you guys can begin to start to figure out the next steps, and we'll continue on with the process.
Can I ask a clarifying question for
Sure.
this park and the ultimate plan that comes forth? There's hard elements to the park in terms of shelters and equipment, and then there's the soft elements such as Susan's mentioned, and Garrett has mentioned in terms of plantings and the neighborhood taking, things like if you look at page 2, what's missing a lot from the park, and he says it's very barren at this point. And given that, trees are something probably we want to have in the park, and it's just an asset that will add beauty and it needs time and sunshine. Is that something that site plan for the park ultimately design will include those plantings, or is that something that the people either in the neighborhood or in this committee can work on with Anna, the forester, to kind of start maybe even this year, given that this is being, we're talking about 2022, but I don't know, in terms of the park and just shade and other things, if we wanted to do a neighborhood activity to plant some trees yet this year, is that a separate thing than the park design, and how would we accomplish that?
Well, I think certainly we want to have a good understanding of where the trees are going to go. It might be a land use plan, as I suggested, that to the north is going to be the passive area, to the south is going to be the active area, and maybe we start from that concept, and then you kind of lay out things, and then after that, then you figure out the design and all of those kinds of things. I'd hate to go out there and plant a bunch of trees and do all that kind of thing, but I think I'm pretty confident that we're going to have a kind of a land use plan, if you would, Sashin, within the first 3 or 4 months. So we're going to have an idea that maybe come fall, I don't see why why we couldn't know where the natural areas are going to be generally, or the trees are going to be generally, and begin to, because like you say, it's going to, those are things that we're doing for your kids and the kids and all of those kinds of things. But we certainly wouldn't want to do it prematurely, but I'm pretty confident that by that fall planting season, I'm thinking if we continue to meet every month, I'm thinking we're going to have a pretty good idea how the thing's going to lay out. Maybe not the specific details of what the shelter looks like or what the design of the playground is, but as far as like a land use idea of where these different things are going to be.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one question about parking. So what kind of dictates if you need like a separate parking lot or if you can rely on street parking?
Well, and again, I think that, the amenities are kind of driven by the activities. Certainly we have the Ultimate Frisbee group that uses that south area, and we've got, the neighbors, the school district who has, a lot of parking and things like that. And I know David Gardner has mentioned too, we got Black Rock Church to the west. We've got a lot of, I suspect that there's a lot of parking lots already in the area, but it might be a relationship or an agreement with, if we're going to have a craft fair on a Saturday, or, we would work with Black Hawk and say, hey, is the parking lot available? And people would walk over. So I think it's just going to be a management of the different activities. I would not anticipate that we're going to have to, carve out part of this parkland to put some additional parking. I would think that there would be enough parking within the area to accommodate, almost to the point of, we don't want to create a parking lot. We're going to design things or plan for things that, we've got the existing amenities, the existing parking lots, and so we're going to design it so that, we're not going to need any more than that. And I don't want to speak to the school and all that.
So are we thinking, kind of daily use will be the people that are within the half-mile radius, and then like big activity use is where people will come in, but that won't necessarily be like a here or there type thing. That'll be at specific times.
I would agree with that. And again, one of the earlier points, the area to the north is going to be the neighborhood park. So that's going to be there for the neighborhood, so they can walk over there 24/7, 365. But the active area parks are going to be more scheduled, more regimented, those kinds of things, and scheduled at times in which parking is going to be available, or whatever it might be. So it's not only it's the programs for these spaces. We're not only designing the space itself, but we design the program for the space and how it all kind of ties together. And boy, to have, like I say, to have the school district there that has parking, to have, Black Hawk Church that has parking to the west, all of these kinds of things, I think are amenities that we can factor into the programming of the space.
When I walked the property, the thing that struck me is, if anything, you might have a couple of spots that kind of you just, inserted very similar to like we have at the library, but just a couple of those, if anything, because if you end up having, more than that, we wouldn't have enough parking space
right.
for a larger group. It's probably 99.5% of the time that you've got maybe half a dozen cars that might have access to that for gathering purposes. And so a small number of spots would meet those needs very easily. But for that half of a percentage of the time, it really didn't make any sense to build out a parking lot, particularly when we have potentially 2 or 3 other sources for that, including the 2 schools and the church.
Exactly.
I will say the one thing we want to maybe take into consideration, especially with the regions of this park and the fact that things will now likely be structured in different proximity to the parking is maybe very targeted disabled parking. And the fact that if we're putting the pavilion on the west end, if we're putting a very high use unit in this park and all you're relying on is street parking, you're looking at a big accessibility issue there. You're looking at ramp access, you're looking at proximity. And so I think that to me speaks to one of the key strategic things we'll probably want to consider in terms of added parking or strategic parking.
Boy, and that right there is advantage to the big group that we have, the diverse experiences, and that's great. Exactly. We have all those different interests that we need to accommodate.
I have a question, just to direct, if I may. This is Sue Easterday talking to Julie Musgrove, and she's here representing Stoner Prairie Elementary, correct?
Correct.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi.
And I just want to double check now, as co-chairs have questions that we could come to you to ask, and then you'll help us clarify whether it's something that addresses your individual school or the middle school, or do you want us to just contact the middle school directly, or should we go through you?
I would say you could go through me, and then I can communicate with Paris or Pete.
Okay. I know Pete.
Yep. So either, but I could communicate with them.
All
because
right.
ultimately, when we were deciding, Pete had said that I could be part of the committee. We kind of had a discussion. Yeah, and I think it's more appointed of like you can take this one on. So, but ultimately, he and I will communicate, and whatever questions you may have, we'll be able to get the answers, whether it's through our custodial, our building and rec, our building and grounds. We can ask them.
Sure. Well,
Well,
while I've got you here, real quick, could I just ask, do you know whether the middle school, and you'll certainly know for your own school, do either of them use the ball diamond there to teach any kind of baseball or softball for part of your curriculum?
I'm not sure on that, only because this is my first year, and it's not
you haven't been in session.
Year, so it's a year of pandemic and social distancing, so there's
all
not.
Right.
Susan,
now you know my first question.
Susan, this is Jane Pruse. They have used it in the past. I've witnessed at pickup that the middle schoolers do use that for kickball, and they have had baseball instruction. Obviously not maybe this year, but they have in the past.
Okay, great.
My one quick question was Daniel Owen, was he going to be our representative from the church?
He was, yes. He was from Blackhawk Church, and like I said, he wasn't able to commit to the meeting, so he just rather than be an infrequent participant, he just decided to withdraw from the group.
I would suspect that he'll still be available. I would hope for questions and those kinds of, maybe just can't commit to the monthly committee meeting.
No, and I would just also volunteer that if you need something from the church side, you can let me know. I'm heavily involved over there, and I talk to Daniel a lot, so I can loop in.
Thank you, Mark. I think that's going to be the second part of that key partnership. One's the school, the other one's the church. So thank you for stepping into that role.
All right, we're doing good. We're at the 85 of the 90 minutes. So
does that mean our first meeting's going to get done early?
Well, actually 60 to 90 minutes. No, that's right in the range. and maybe just a reminder of the assignments for everybody. Take a look at some stuff, go out there, but certainly I guess the first thing is we want to do some surveying of different the different neighborhoods. So if you could come up with any questions, send them to Chad, and And then Chad and the committee will come up with some draft survey questions, and we'll kind of set that for as one of the agenda items for May when we get together. So just for announcements, our next two meetings will be May 19th and June 16th. And I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Who was that?
Janelle, so moved.
Janelle, thank you. Any seconds?
Sure, second.
Thank you. All those in favor, thanks, Randy. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Very good. Motion carries. Now Chad Siegel, he will be the